Comedy Film Nerds Podcast.
All right, so you two guys saw A Wrinkle in Time.
Yes, we saw Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear.
And
what
I
you
will
have to
say,
about
now,
this movie.
I have a different perspective because when I go to these movies, I go with the entire family.
Right.
So I have two kids that go.
What are their
my wife
ages?
goes. They are 13 and 9.
Okay.
So they are right smack dab in the center of what this movie is for. Now,
John, do you have kids?
Nope.
Okay.
So I'm going to start by doing the other racial point that was made. In the book, Meg and her family are Caucasian, and in the movie, the Murray family is multiracial. This became controversial among fans of the book and its sequels, but filmmakers believed a multiracial family would be more relevant and relatable for contemporary audiences. Chris Pine had said that the multiracial family dynamic was actually one of the aspects in the script which attracted him to the project. Now, here's what's interesting. Again, the actual race of the family never comes into play in the story at all. So a multiracial family, an all-white family, none of that is integral to the story. So it's perfectly fine that they made it a multiracial family. The criticism is not valid. Again, it's not something like it's a story on race and you're changing races or anything like that. This is a science fiction story about basically a girl who lost her father. It doesn't matter if he's black, white, or what color the child is. And it's about family. It's about growing up. It's got all these. I honestly, I saw the targets this movie was trying to hit. The problem is this movie missed a lot of them. So it was one of those movies that had like great intentions. Like you could see this is going to be like a girl power kind of an empowerment type movie. Right. And it just, it as someone who's also read the source material, and if you've read the book like a long time ago, it missed a lot of things. Like there was a lot of things that it did get right, like her missing her father, her being bullied and tortured at school over it, and also it gave the characters a little more room and a little more room to breathe, so we got to develop them a little bit more.
You're talking about the book.
They're talking about the book, and a lot of this kind of got glossed over a little bit in the movie. The movie tried, like, when it also tried to show, like, what the villain was. The villain was essentially called It, and it's like the darkness that, invades planets and including our own and makes people do bad things and feeds on all those things. So you actually see one of the more poignant parts in the movie was that, the bully that was bullying the girl at school, she's got her own problems that she's dealing with and how she feels miserable and how...
The bully's a girl.
The bully's a girl, yeah. And
that's cool.
So there was some interesting aspects there, but ultimately there were so many things in the book that were missed and thrown away that it missed all these great opportunities. Like here's an example. The book makes a real point of showing that when a world gives into the it becomes completely neutral. Like if you see in the trailer, all the kids are bouncing the balls at the exact same time. Mm-hmm. There's tons of creepy stuff like that in the book that never made it into the movie. Like there's a whole city. There's people going to their jobs like that. There's people afraid to speak out because if they alter the routine or say anything for 1 second, they disappear. So there's there's police state, Gestapo stuff. There's all that stuff that was literally just excised from the film, which, in a kid's book is pretty heavy stuff. But at the same time, you can trust kids to understand what oppression and what all these things are, even if it's set in a fantasy setting. They're smart enough to understand that. So there's no reason to take this stuff out. So...
the stuff you're talking about, I haven't finished it because when you're binging 5 or 6 different shows, the world we live in now, you're like, I'm on episode 4 of this, and yet I'm on episode 7 of that. Yes, I'm on episode 2 of that. Have you finished anything? So, but the one you're talking about, the movie with the book, those references were actually executed really well in Channel Zero. I think it's called No End House, which I'm on episode 4 of, which I found incredibly interesting without giving away too many spoilers. Echoes a lot of what you're talking about, and there is sort of a dark thing that replicates, not perfectly at all, our world and trying to emulate stuff so it can drain you of your energy and stuff. But A Wrinkle in Time did not have that.
No. And also you look at too, like the book itself was so brilliant. It was written in the 60s. So, parts of it are dated for sure. But, that's not an excuse. They're like, we got to make it hipper and smarter and more visual effects. And I'm like, no, you don't. It's a classic for a reason. You take these classic elements. And also, like, one of the things, too, is the author of the book made it a deliberate attempt to show how sterile a lot of these environments were in worlds that had given up, and to make it ultimately look like everything is, uniform and conforming. But in the movie, it's like blasting you with like Guardians of the Galaxy special effects and
$103 million budget.
Yeah, and a lot of that you could tell went individual effects, and it wasn't necessary. It really was, the creepier and the more interesting parts of the book you could do, and you should have done on a lower visual effects budget, because it would have been more effective. And like I said, you can trust kids aren't stupid. They get these higher concepts and themes. So I wanted to like it more than I did. I thought there was definitely some missed opportunity here. The kids did like it visually. It was fun, and it was
Did your kids read the book?
They did.
Story?
In fact, my 8-year-old, or not my 9-year-old, he was upset that they had taken so much stuff out of it. He was like, the book was better. I'm like, yeah, it was. You're right.
What did you think, John?
Well, I'll start off with saying my fiance Holly Payne read the book, and she loved the book and the source material when she was a kid, and she had to leave the theater. She didn't even see the end, the last like 20 minutes.
Just made her that mad?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I wanted to join her, but I was like, I'm in it for the end. I'm going to see how it all ends. I thought it was horribly written. I mean, I didn't read the source material, but I think just as a book about a kid going through experiences with their family, even written for a family to see this film, and I felt like the race issue, the diversity issue, didn't play into it at all. I could take any one of them could be swapped out with any race or religion or any way you want to slice it. It had nothing to do with the execution of it, because the execution of it was horrible.
Right.
It was like a train wreck, watching really badly put up. Like, let's set this up and not execute that well. Now let's set this story point up and not execute that well. So it was a series of scenes. Really, there was a needle drop record kind of, here, now you need to feel this way. Like, there was literally that kind of manipulative, like, movie, like, now we're having fun. No, now it's scary. Kind of.
You got to watch Oprah try on a bunch of different dresses.
It was real simple. And that's what I mean. I feel like, look, I mean, some people were saying, hey, it's good for kids, and I'm glad your kids enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I feel like just as an adult watching this, I was like, I couldn't recommend it to anyone, really, because there's so many other amazing films, like thousands and thousands of films that have been made that are superior to this.
And it was a missed opportunity. I mean, as far as a family movie goes, it was
no
one
connection.
of those things.
I felt like all the things that are set up, like, the bully girl, you just see shots of her looking out a window. There's like, is there any depth to that? No, there's not. It's like the surface way of telling a story. There's no deep emotional core ever. The little kid, I got to be honest, the little kid that they got who played Thomas Wallace was horrible. Like, literally, he's a kid who talked like this the whole time, all one pitch thing. I don't understand what he said.
Yeah.
Like, one pitch, the way either he's a little kid happy yelling, where's my dad? I don't know my dad. Or he's mad. He's like, I'm going to kill you because of this. Like,
yeah, not every child actor is Haley Joel Osment.
This kid, I mean, maybe
really,
he'll grow up to be an amazing actor, but he was like, it was like piercing to hear
it's
his
a
voice.
tough role, because that character is integral to the story, and he's supposed to be a genius and wise beyond his years. And that just was never conveyed.
He's just a smug little, I know this. And then he turns into the Children of the Corn Malachi kid at the end with a glowing face, like, I'll kill you all. You're like, I was like, please get me out of this theater. What am I watching? And then, I mean, look, Oprah, Reese Witherspoon,
Mindy Kaling.
They are dressed in the weirdest, like, where did they shop at Oz? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like why, in what universe
like
ever
the
decided?
Hunger Games, the rich people in the Hunger
It
Games.
did, yeah.
We're
yeah,
capital,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Those people look better than this. I mean, I
Yeah.
felt like it was so garish, and like, I get it, it's for kids. So I was like, all right, maybe they look like, it just didn't work for me on any level.
It felt like more attention was going to the production design than telling the story. That's what it really felt like.
That's disappointing, because it was Ava DuVernay who did 13th, great documentary, did Selma, and this was sort of.
You don't know, too, if she got noted to death. You don't know, like, what happened behind the scenes.
Because it was such a big budget studio
Such
film.
a big budget studio film. This was, her first fantasy film. Were they over her shoulder, changing everything? Who knows?
It's really hard to tell, especially it's hard to tell when you have, like, is there another hour that's missing of things that were shot that were emotionally more connective, but then you have a 3-hour film, which is not acceptable, especially for a family film where it should be like about 90 minutes.
Right.
So there's like, there's layers there.
And it had a slow start too. I mean, granted, the book starts slow, but at the same time, it's like you could get going a little quicker in the movie.
Yeah, I was never invested for 1 second in the entire film, and I couldn't wait to get out of the theater.
Now,
that's how I felt about it. I felt I was like so disappointed. Disappointed isn't even the right word. It was like, wow, I can't recognize.
So now again, after this, we talk about our second movie. I didn't dislike it as much as John. So
yeah, let's just be clear. I didn't like the film.
Yeah,
so I don't know if that came across.
But I thought Chris Pine did a good job.
The thing that's interesting too is I don't think you guys were alone in this, because Black Panther did better at the box office.
Yes.
Than
right.
Than this movie did. When Black Panther's still out there kicking ass.
Everybody's talking about diversity. That's the cool thing, is that this is the first time in history that we've had 2 black filmmakers in the number 1 and the number 2 spots. So I think that's the cool walk away from. But I think it's like Black Panther's going to eat everything in its way for the next 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, Rampage is the next movie that's actually going to probably get number 1. No, it's going to beat Black Panther. That's the next one. All the other movies are going to probably, I don't think Tomb Raider can even beat Black Panther right now. So all the movies that are coming out over the next few weeks.
A lot of fans of the video game are going to go see that movie.
And the other thing too, it's like, this is the thing we talked about. We talked about this during the Oscars, is it's a step in the right direction when a black woman can make a big budget movie that's kind of a flop and she'll still get work. You know what I mean? Because
exactly.
white guys have been making horrible fucking
right.
$200 million movies and still getting hired.
Yeah.
And, she's a good filmmaker. And like you say, it might have just been the studio, or who knows. Or maybe this is, there's nothing. Some filmmakers.
It just didn't come together.
Right.
I mean, it really.
That's
what
it is. I mean, I don't see any fingers to directly point to with A Wrinkle in Time.
Right.
Like, it's this one person who did.
Right.
It feels like.
Or not even this one thing. It was just the entire package together just didn't gel.
Right. Like the idea of making a movie of A Wrinkle in Time, I think even especially for the people who've read the books, were like,
that's a great idea.
A lot of people were but concerned. Don't screw it up.
Yeah.
Right.
So it has that kind of thing with any of these like novels that are like, when you read it, you have your own vision of it in your head.
And especially, most people have read this like it's required reading. Like it was required reading for my son in class. So, and I remember reading it in class when I was a kid. So, you've got literally generations of people who have read this book. Right. So, there's a lot vested as far as like, well, I want to see what I grew up with.
Right.
And the other point I want to make too is. I can't remember if I made this point already or not, is that the book has some really interesting ideas in it, and especially like with the villains, like I'm talking about with like the It and all these things. We've seen them after that, like when I say the book's a little bit dated, it's dated in a good way, where a lot of the ideas in her book were used in subsequent science fiction stories and movies. And so when you look at the source material, you realize, oh, this kind of feels like I've seen this before. Yes, because it's been taken from this book. It's like watching like an old movie. It's like watching M, like you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of where, some of the thriller tropes have actually come from. This is kind of like the source material. So I felt like, this was, I was excited. This was, great trailer, great cast. And I was like, it just didn't come together. So what are you going to do?
All right.
All right.
So what we're saying is go see Black Panther again.
And read Wrinkle in Time.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm going to read. I'm going to read the book to kind of watch away the movie. So
yeah. And when you read the book, you're like, oh, this is there's now I see that a third to a half of this was missing. So, and the good parts.